Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Talking That Talk official podcast where we have comfortable and uncomfortable conversations. I am your host, Juice, aka the Ordinary Brother.
All right, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite show. I go by the name of King Exodus. As always, thank you for tapping in. Make sure you share the live. Make sure you share the video. Alrighty. So, a couple of quick takes we're going to have right now. Just giving a shout out to Apple. Nearly in 4 days after pushing the Apple savings account, which is a fairly new thing, they generated over 1.4 billion, I believe. So, shouts out to Apple. Shouts out to everybody that's tapped into Apple. You know what I mean? It's a lot of money to be made over there. We're not telling you what to do. We're not telling you to invest or open up a savings account with Apple, by the way. Disclaimer. However, with them generating that amount of money so fast, you got to realize they're doing bigger numbers than most regional banks right now. So shouts out to Apple. And also, in Joe Biden's news on Talking That Talk, we have another whopping 1.2 billion in military aid being sent to Ukraine. So we just have to throw that in, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't be tapped into that type of information. So yeah, they are raising the debt ceiling by $1 trillion so we can send more money out to other countries. So yeah, shouts out to Joe and everybody that voted for him. Yeah, so that's 37 billion or 38 billion now, I believe, that in total sent to Ukraine. So Juice, I'll let you do your thing, man. What we talking about?
Man, first of all, I want to say shout out to Apple. What I always say, the power of marketing and building your brand. And get anybody to buy into anything you do, especially if it's something that's going to be positive, as well as with everything that's going on with the financial institutions. Hey, listen, way to double that up, baby. All right, shout out to Apple. After I don't know what they did. It was a launch. But, yeah, also with military aid, everybody knows how I think. I believe in get it right with your peoples first before lending assistance. But at the same time, I do understand once alliances are made, there are duties that both sides are held accountable to. So, hey, listen, I don't really know too much about politics, but I do understand that. All right. So, also in current news, we had Ebony K. I'm pretty sure some of y'all saw the viral clip of the lawyer slash boss woman slash independent woman slash magnificent speaker. Basically tell the story about how she was getting interviewed by, I can't figure her name right now. I'm sorry, I forgot her name. She asked, could you date a bus driver? She said, well, if he owns the bus, I can date him. Now, a lot of people was uproared about it. You know, she said like, hey, listen, see, that's your problem. You're looking for the money aspect and not the quality of a man. And like I said, people was uproar. Some people was like, well, how are y'all upset about a woman stating her preference but not dating a bus driver? It's just her preference. Like, why do y'all look down on it? It's so much things that flew off just for that comment right there. For instance, we have always talked about the attraction level when it comes to finances, right? On a financial basis, you have women who once they obtain a certain amount of money and stature, they're looking for a man that's equal or above it. Very few chances that you actually see somebody date down when it comes to that. Like I said, there are rare occasions, but man, I just gotta say this, man. It's amazing how essential workers don't get the amount of respect that they do. Like a lot of people, it's like, well, he's driving a bus. Like, why would you respect him? I was like, yo, you gotta understand that people are not driving the buses. You gotta keep accountable for every individual that's on that bus. You got people who got to get to their kids. You got people who got to get to their jobs. You got people who are on there to try to help build things, fix things, or aid other people. So imagine if the bus wasn't running, then how would everybody be able to move around the city? You know, it's not the same thing with the subway. You know what I'm saying? A lot of essential things that come into place that we got to stop disrespecting. That's all I got right there, man. What did you think about when she made the comment?
I tried to watch the entire interview. I couldn't. I think it's already clipped up. I don't know if they took it down, but the bits and pieces that I did see, by her saying that a man that drives a bus probably made mediocre grades in school because that's like a quote unquote average occupation, and that's like beneath her dating status. So I mean, everybody got their preferences on who they choose to deal with and who they don't. To each his own on that. But we have to reevaluate this notion of what is average. and is average necessarily a bad thing? And on how many levels is it negative? Because average people make up majority of the middle class, which is what generates the whole entire economy. Like there wouldn't be millionaires and billionaires if there was not a middle class, because that is the consumer class, and that is also the working class that's most employed. So Breakfast Club made their comments like, yo, if everybody stopped working their 9 to 5s as quote unquote average, what happens to the economy? What happens? No one picks up the trash. No one is in transportation. Nope. What is the world going to come to if everybody just bosses up, so to speak? So sometimes these type of comments, I can understand the energy behind them. Her saying, yo, as black people, our kids shouldn't be making C's and D's. They should be making A's, and we should always strive to be the best version of ourselves. True. But it doesn't necessarily mean that there will not be a quote unquote working class at the same time. So you can be in a working class and still understand those 4 types of money and still know how to navigate between these 4 types without necessarily being wealthy. So, and that's another episode we'll have with the whole generational wealth thing and all these, how it's positive and how it can be negative at the same time. So in the dating space, you know, for a woman to quote unquote not work, we said all the time, you know, you're looking at men of high value, high earners, 6-figure earners over a consecutive period of time. Those are the ones most likely that's able to provide that type of lifestyle for the woman not to be able to work at all and everything to be comfortable. Now, you do have men that make less than that, and they still hold down everything, but that key word, comfortable, like comfortable is like a very subjective term in how people want to live or not. So, very disgusting comment. It wasn't worded correctly at all. So that's my take on that. We'll reevaluate. I want to do an episode on quote unquote the average lifestyles or whatever. What's good about it? What's negative? So you got it.
Oh man, oh man. I mean, the only thing I got to say about that is like, yeah, like you said, men who make X amount of money are the ones who are able to keep a woman at the house. I also know average men who also give that woman that opportunity, especially the ones who get married. I know an individual who literally drives a bus and told his wife, "Hey, look, you have the option to stay home or go to work." She chose to stay home, so everything's dependent on his shoulders, and he literally drives a bus. So yeah, it could be comfortability on, like I said, on his part or the woman's part, but at the same time, some men don't mind stepping into certain roles once a relationship has reached a certain level.
Yep.
All right, I have said it myself. I'll say it again in case anybody don't know. I say I believe in like listen, as I'm in a relationship with a person, unless I'm already at the point where I want to be. I believe in listen. Once we get to a certain relationship, if you're working full time, I'll step in and be like, listen, you're able to drop part time. Once that relationship gets to the next chapter of marriage, I will give it an option of like, listen, you had an option to work or you had an option to be home. That's what I'm saying. That's what all my focus on being a provider and doing everything I'm doing on the skill set and networking basis to make sure I can be able to provide on that type of level. Like I said, if you're a man who has to do 50-50, I still believe in you should gradually increase yourself to be 100% man eventually. Those are things you should try for. But
Yes, sir. And it's, I think a lot of people focus on who brings in what amount of money in the household and not the number of savings within the household. Like that's what people are lacking the most. You know what I'm saying? So the status quo is to at least have $5,000 per household in savings or investments. Like that's just numbers that people don't look at. So like I said, 4 types of money, fiat, fiduciary, commercial banking, commodity. Like you don't have to be wealthy to understand these different types of money. So that's a wrap on the Advocate K. We ready to do this?
huh?
We ready to do this? All right,
I'm
let's
ready.
go.
I'm ready. The only thing I was gonna say is like, listen, the average median for people that's in a marriage is a net worth of 148,000. So remember that. If you at least aim, if you're gonna aim for something average, make sure it makes sense at the same time, and that's just the average.
Average. Well, I tell you, that's a loaded word. All right, so um, the great icon, the homie Steve Harvey, did an interview with Shannon Sharpe, Club Shay Shay. Um, Very great interview. I like to hear this man speak. I listen to a lot of his interviews. Whether I agree 100% or not with everything he says, he's still a great speaker, very motivational type of guy. So it's a lot of things that was said amongst this 2 hour interview.
2 hours.
Right. But what he said in 40 seconds just took over the whole shit. So, Juice, I'll let you regurgitate what he said, man. What got everybody going crazy?
All right, I'm pretty sure everybody knows the viral clip out of the whole 2 hour segment of the interview. It was basically Steve Harvey was saying, listen, what is wrong with the young men today? The women shouldn't have to bring nothing to the table. That's all on you. And it caused an uproar, right? And one thing I did like about Shannon Sharpe and Steve Harvey is there's an 11 year age difference. See, 66, Shannon is 55.
Mhm.
Shannon was looking at like, well, sure, well, what about the women who say they don't need a man? Steve also made another point. We're like, well, what do you mean you don't need a man? I mean, how's that going to work for you when everything's already built the way it is for you to be a woman? And I was like, okay, you know what I'm saying? But the main focus was that clip right then and there. Should a woman have to bring something to the table, or should men just bring everything to the table?
Mhm.
One thing, however, one thing I do like about one of his comments he said is, listen, when a man's going to reach his fullest potential or take the role of being a leader in his house, he's going to put everything he can into that family. I'm like, okay, I do fuck with that. I do believe that 100%. Um, that's why I look at some situations where people shouldn't look at creating family so soon unless you already have that mentality that you're going to reach to provide on that level. Or you're already going to, that's the end and bottom line, right? Uh, like I said, through that whole thing, caused uproar. People like, yo, Steve Harvey's a pimp. He's on, he's on his third marriage. He's doing this and that. I challenge everybody to watch that whole interview. Now, do I agree with what he said that women should bring nothing to the table? Absolutely not. Don't agree with it. But at the same time, I also talked about aiding and assistance. What makes your compatibility with another individual is how do you make things easier for them? If I can do more of this and he can do more of this, it makes my life easy. If he does more of this and shit, like I said, it's the compatibility, the reciprocity, the energy that's being poured in at the same time to where your relationship works because y'all both benefiting. Remember, y'all are both benefiting. It's not one way, it's both ways.
Okay. Those definitely facts. So I actually think that he kind of tripped over his words a little bit, me personally, because in one space he speaks highly of Marjorie, his wife, and how much she brings to the table, not in the form of currency, but in the form of energy. So what he said was like, a woman doesn't have to bring anything to the table. She has the ability to make you a new you.
Mhm.
So I'm like, bro, you just said she brings something to the table.
Yeah.
So I think that, maybe you misspoke, or maybe the perspective wasn't uh, wide enough to even hear what he had just been saying. Not just on this interview, but he speaks very highly of his wife, how she handles the finances. She speaks life into him. His whole attire that he wears now, changing the suit sizes
Mhm.
and certain different type of business aspirations. Like, she told him, hey, you can be a bigger star than what you are. I see you doing this. I see you doing that. So he even speaks about the trajectory of his life, career-wise, prior to her and after, right?
Mhm.
It took off even higher. So I would just simply say, let's not overlook the fact that when he said a woman can make you a new you, like that's like tangible, intangible, all those things above, right? So you have different type of men that lean on different types of women. You know what I'm saying? You have women that's maybe into spirituality. Maybe they can open you up into another world. Maybe you can start looking at astronomy, astrology, different things of that nature. Maybe she could be like that whole Erica Badu type of woman that opens you up in that type of perspective. If she's heavy into Christianity, you know what I'm saying? Maybe she can, you know what I'm saying, invoke you on a higher path of your calling, maybe related to God or whatever. So these are the things that women bring to the table. Now, in the real world, like we said earlier, a lot of men don't make an excess of six figures or close to it. Average black man makes about 47,000. Average white male makes about 50 something thousand. So it's about a $10,000 gap in between those two. But a lot of men really don't make that 70, 80, 90, 100K. So just based on the economy, that's based on the way everything's set up in a capitalistic society, both people are going to have to work. So this is how you have people like Kevin Samuels. You know, he would ask these women, what type of man do you want? How much? First off, he would ask, what type of lifestyle do you want to live? How many children do you want to have? What state do you live in? And they really never looked up the financial facts of what's the cost of that. You know what I'm saying? So that's where he came and he brought in the numbers to actually wake them up to show that, hey, you're going to have an input. It's probably not 50% financially, maybe 20, 30, 40. You know what I'm saying? It just really depends on who you choose as a mate and what he brings to the table, quote unquote. So I just want to start there. I think he just tripped over his words, and that's kind of like an old school mentality. And even listening to some people that come from like the old school culture, black, quote unquote, they was like, look, it really wasn't a long time period where black men just took care of the whole household and everybody was comfortable. They was like, yo, that was like mostly like white men and men of other culture that was able to do that. Black people, they were saying, yo, like people worked within the household. That was a common theme. Like you hear people that grew up in the 70s. It was like, yo, children was working. Like everybody had some type of contribution financially towards the household because between the 70s and the 80s, poverty became the norm for Black America. So where did we live in this world where we weren't in poverty heavy and the men could just work and the women just sat back, did absolutely nothing and drunk lemonade and she went shopping and got their nails and shit done all day? So that's my take on that. That's my open.
Well, could you say the grass is greener on the other side was an effect? It was an effect as to why people start having more how can you say aspirations, ambitions, or anything like that, right? So basically, things that were already set up for us to be good was already in place. But if somebody be like, well, the Johnsons just got a new car, a new house, like, well, why we can't get that? I mean, well, hey, listen, I don't make that much yet. So I do honestly believe that was one of the biggest factors that also played into people wanting more and grasping more. Like, is it wrong to want more and do more? No, not at all. But at the same time, if you want to really focus on your family and pour into the family in a certain way to get to that level, then I also say, like I said, it can be nothing more than like just wanting to grasp what somebody else has, right? I give you an example. I notice every time I talk to women now, if we're on good terms, they send me stuff on social media all day, right? Restaurant they want to try, a couple doing this, a couple doing that. And I always ask myself, is this social media based influence or do you want what they have? You know what I'm saying? I feel like that. Do you want what they have or do you really just want to experience where this place? You know what I'm saying? I don't think people understand that. Like, if they see somebody happy, they go to this place. They're like, "Well, I want what they have." It might not actually even be the place. It's how they're interacting in that video. That's the experience they really want. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I do pay attention to when it comes to dating, as well. Like I said, social media has played an influence into what goes in people's mind on what to do, what to try, how relationship dynamics should be, and I'm just like, damn. But that's all I got right there.
Okay. So I would say for the women that push this narrative that women shouldn't have to work at all, the man is the provider, all this stuff. Okay, great. This is not something that every woman should experience, in my opinion, right? Just like every man is not going to experience 6 figures or more, right? So this is for the people to actually put in the work. So even if you don't work a 9 to 5 as a woman, you still have to work on yourself in order to attract that type of man. If that's the lifestyle you truly desire and you want to live luxurious, right? And that's your way of saying you want to be comfortable. You want to be able to take trips, go shopping, live peacefully, not stress about anything. So you have to work on yourself to build your personal value up to attract that type of high value man, quote unquote. It's not just for everybody. You can't just The Godfather always said, you can't just manifest yourself into the perfect relationship that you have envisioned. You still have to work for it.
Right.
Whether you're working the clock or you're working off the clock, you're still working. Because after you attract that type of man that can provide and protect to the highest level or the level that you see suit, what's next? Competition. You have to work to keep that man. So sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Like, work is a loaded word because I don't want to put in the fact that you're so secure once you do attract that type of man that your work is done. Your work is never done. You compete for that man until you die. He competes for you until he die by his work, his provision, and what he can provide financially. So if both people are constantly working on themselves to perform at the highest levels, erase this shit about women not bringing nothing to the table, because you are. Just if it's not in dollar sign amount, it's still in work and value and ethic. So, you know, we throw these cute terms around. Oh, we want to be partners, right? No, partners, right? Right? Everybody want to be a partner until it's time to work. Then all of a sudden, we go back to gender roles. I don't believe in gender roles, but when it fits me, I'm gonna go back to being a woman, and when it fits me, I'm gonna go back to being the man in the leadership role and all this shit. Like, be careful about the words that you use if you're truly not living behind that shit. So partners mean that both people work and bring something to the table. If you're partners, if you're equals. So we got to be careful about the words that we use. You got to
do that shit on purpose.
Right.
X know exactly how I feel about that word. That's fucking good. Oh my goodness. But no, there's a lot of factual to it, right? I remember I had to break that down before. I was like, listen, me and X, we're partners. What does partners mean? That means we're gonna have equal amount of work and opportunities to make sure we get things off on the ground. That's a partnership. I was like, and then I'll go, are you sure you want a partnership? Because in other words, what I'm saying is you want something equal to bring to make sure things work in this relationship. And then they think about it and be like, well, I thought, you know, partner was just like, you know, me and you could. I was like, no. And I always say this. Y'all hear me say this damn near every episode. Words have an effect on the mind. If you say certain words to me, I'm going to look at you and make sure you understand what you're saying. So just how I did that breakdown with X, I make sure people understand that if you pitch partnerships to me. So that's another thing. When it comes to, that's another thing I would say. You have environmental femininity. Sometimes you have environmental masculinity, right? I have seen men be men only in certain areas and not the areas that count. And I'm like, oh, you're a man here, but hey, this is where it really counts. No, you can man up and play basketball. You know what I'm saying? You're the man there. But when you go to work, you want to half-ass that shit. like we gotta pick and choose. You want to pick and choose when you want to display your masculinity, your dominance, or your assertiveness when it's convenient, when eyes on you. I'm a very competitive person. I don't care what it is. We can play a game of tic-tac-toe. I'm competing like my life depended on it.
You're gonna beat all the kids.
Like, listen, taking your jelly beans, your marbles, all that. And like I said, I have always been a person that's like, yo, I'm gonna create the environment I want somebody to already be comfortable in. My house, I mean, like where I sleep, peaceful. I have color variations for different rooms. It gives you a different senses to your mind because of the colors. It's always water. There's color water. There's wine. There's liquor. Whatever you need is already there. I like to be plentiful. So when a person ever steps in my household and tries to tell me what a man should do, it's like pissing me off because I'm already provided the environment that I wanted. I want peace. I like prosperity. I like relaxation. There's another room for me to do business in so I can be constructive. You know what I'm saying? I can go produce. I can go study. It's things that you already set up when somebody steps in an environment, they should already know how to behave. But at the same time, you have people who try to step in your environment that you already know you created that keeps you at peace. And they'll try to say, well, you could move this around, you could do this. Like, yeah, shut the fuck up. Like, slow down. So I do want to tell people about the importance of creating the environment to get the results you want. But at the same time, be careful of those who believe coming into the environment, you should add anything that they want you to add according to what they are or what they do. And sometimes it's not very how you say it, an even exchange. I say that.
Okay. Another thing he pointed out with Marjorie is he was like, yo, when he married her, that was the first time he experienced peace within his household. He was married twice before that. So once again, the value of a woman bringing that peaceful, vibrant energy to some men, that's the most important thing, right? And it really depends on the man and what he values the most. He was like, peace allowed him to go out there and conquer the world. Because in quotations, he was like, look, I got to go out there and deal with racism. I got to go out here and deal with the business world. I don't have time to go home and fight another battle. So she gave me that peace at home, so I was able to produce more. So once again, it goes back to the work factor. Like, if you do want that man to go out there and conquer the world and bring it back to you on a silver plate to where you don't have to do anything, the number one thing you can provide is peace. Going back to the Godfather, fit, feminine, cooperative. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Feminine, cooperative, to listen.
Right.
Yeah.
Feel me? So, and that's sometimes we live in a over-sexualized society to where a lot of women really don't know their value as much as they speak on it. It's like they think the value is within the womb itself. So, hey, look, they bringing sex to the table, so that's all they got to do. And that's totally non-factual. Like, that's not factual, right? Depending on certain men, if they really value sex that much and that's really their motivation in life. So if that's your biggest asset to add to the relationship, then you probably won't live that type of lifestyle that you want to live with that man being a provider, because you're not adding to the relationship in a motivational standpoint, right? So sometimes a lot of women want to say that they feel demeaned, right, sexually within society. But if you feel like that's the only thing and that's your greatest tool that you could bring to a relationship, who's actually devaluing you? So that's why you have some men that's more sapiosexual. Some men like value that peace more than anything. Not saying I don't want sex either at the same time. You know, I like that too. You know what I'm saying? I need that too. But hey, be peaceful with it at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Don't be the whole Cardi type of chick where she say, you know, she got to argue with him because the nigga love a toxic bitch. You know what I'm saying? Hey, you know, I got to do both, man. I got to give out both sides. So don't be that type of person that over-sexualizes your relationship to the point you feel like that's the only thing you got to bring to the table. You got it.
Man, I want y'all to understand everything this man is literally talking about is a trade-off. I don't know if any of y'all figure that. Everything he's talking about literally is a trade-off within a relationship. As in, what do you bring to the table? One thing I also say, I'll make a comment about this, saying is like, listen, I have met men who just value just sex. I'm not gonna lie. Who just value sex within that relationship. Just anytime they want it, they know they can have it. Cool, they on it. But see, you gotta ask yourself at the same time, if a person only values that out of you, like after a while, you're gonna feel a little worthless. Right? Because some people really think that's like good enough. Like, you know, I'll sex you and do this stuff for you, but after a period of time, people start questioning themselves like, damn, is that all I'm here for? Like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, I don't have to work, but damn, this is it. This is every day. This is all my life is like. So you do, like I said, it's one of the most interesting things at the same time. That's why I always say I'd rather take somebody with a high sex drive than a low sex drive. But at the same time, I also understand myself as into putting out sex to make sure I get things done. But you have some men who always feel the need to have to fire off to a point that gets them through the day. Meaning, like, they went, like I said, the same battle they go through, just be inside and be one what they want is enough for them. Make them feel like they go out in the world and take the world. Like, I didn't talk about how powerful sex is sometimes, right? I done been times where I feel like I'm drained. Made a little love, man. Went to work. I had all the energy in the world. You know what I'm saying? I felt a little weak. Fell in them cheeks, man. I had that sexual healing. I felt like I was a new man. I had like a new man that next day, man. I don't know, man. So baby, listen, the Punani can do a lot of things for me.
Okay, all right.
But yeah, let me go ahead and get out that shit.
Yes, sir. I would definitely say Queen of Four, Sister Shahrazad Ali, two powerful women that break the whole femininity thing down to the core. Another thing that struck me during the interview is he spoke about his wife, and he said, "Look, I own her," and that was also another part of the interview where he got backlash. And he was like, "Look, I own her. Like that's mine. Like she belonged to me." And he was like, "Look, I belong to her." You know what I'm saying? Like he was like, "I want to belong to somebody." So he also said this whole new type of thinking of people not want to be owned by their quote unquote partner or counterpart. He didn't agree with that, and he called backlash for that part as well. And I would just simply say, like, look, it's just really it makes me curious when people say, "Look, that's my soulmate, that's my twin, that's my person, that's this, that's that." You do realize the word before that is my. That's ownership. That's possessiveness, right? If you say that's my woman, that's my man, that's possessiveness, right? A man will live and die, kill, do whatever it takes to provide for his woman, his family. Devalue people to items, but within this world, I feel like the notion of freedom can be a negative thing as well. Because if nobody wants to belong to anything, we're going to have a problem within society. So I always say, look, if you have a family, you belong to that family. You got a last name, you have a duty and responsibility to that last name more than your first. If you have, you know what I'm saying, this is what you're providing for. Everybody wants to talk about generational wealth, but what are you doing it for if you don't belong to anything? So besides your name, your family, your household, this is honor, integrity, morals, values. Then you have a ethnicity, a race you belong to. You know what I'm saying? Everyone belongs to something. So sometimes pushing freedom too much can destroy people's decision making. It maybe not for the people that's so disciplined to where they understand alignment and all these different types of things, but for the average person, just basic talk, yes, ownership and all these different types of things. When Dame Dash said, "I hustle for my last name, not my first," that's saying that he belongs to something as well. So the word ownership gets a negative connotation, in my opinion. So I just want to throw that in the mix that, if people actually go out and get married, build families, you come from families, you come from a race, you come from a background, you come from structure, ownership wouldn't be a negative thing to you because you understand how you play into that word as well. So when I make a decision, I'm not just making a decision as an individual. This whole individual shit is kind of like ruining society because everybody's moving as individuals and no one's part of a collective. So if I go out here and I'm on a podcast, I'm like, yo, I'm King Exodus of talking that talk. I'll go out here and do some crazy shit. They're not going to say, oh, King Exodus did that. They're going to say, talking that talk did that. You see how it works? When you get endorsed by a company, they're not going to say, oh, it's just the person that we endorsed went out and did something crazy. It's going to bring shame and all these different types of things to the company that's behind you. So everybody deals with ownership. It shouldn't be a negative thing only. So you got it.
Nah, man. I'm gonna tell you right now. I like the fact that he stood down on that when he said, "I own that woman and she owns me." Uh, like I said, marriage is a business. That is ownership. But you know what I'm saying? It's amazing that the lengths you can go to do certain things that people will still want freedom in the end. Like I feel like I spit in the face. That's why I said, like, look, if you're in a relationship, do you believe you're still independent? And some people be like, well, I'm fine with my woman independent. I'd be like, shit, I feel like that's a slap in the face. What am I here
Correct.
for? What am I here for? So we got to be truthful, but at the same time, it's like, how can you say this? If a woman owns a man, you know what I'm saying, and a man still decides to act how he want to act, it's some people would be like, well, a man is just being a man, but you still have ties to that man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It's still ties there. Like at the same time, it's not like I got a girlfriend. She goes out and do whatever. I say I own her, but then when she do something, I'm like, nah, I don't own that. Like,
Signature.
like no,
Right.
no, 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 no. Everybody knows me and this person goes together. We're in a relationship. She comes home. She does this and that, bro. That's I don't care what anybody says. I'm possessed. Listen, I'm possessive as fuck. If I say I own something, I own something. I don't care what nobody says.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I want you to pay attention to the way men say they own something that are not, how can you say, in an abusive manner versus a protective manner, right? For instance, anytime I ever take a woman out, I always say, listen, I'm responsible for you till you get home, unless you tell me otherwise. That's just how I am. No person gonna be like, they're like, damn, you like somebody. In fact, somebody said it just like it's not like you own me, but I don't have to own you. This is just who I am. It's natural nature. You know what I'm saying? That's why if people be like, well, if she ain't my chick, then she can do whatever. But when you take ownership, then it's like, yo, I'm gonna need you to turn that down. It's a whole different mind process when it comes to that. So I always say, if you like to be free, stay free. If you want something real, you're gonna have some structures and guidelines to fuck with it.
And that's all it
That's all
is. It's
it
structure.
is.
Look, if you work a 9 to 5, if you're an entrepreneur, you pay taxes, you got a birth certificate,
Right.
you need a certification to do certain things, you need a driver's license to operate a vehicle. That's ownership, fam.
Oh,
Different levels. Like no one's completely free here. Like what are we talking? You got a last name. You didn't pick that last name. You didn't pick your first name.
mm-mm.
You know what I'm saying? Like all that's part of ownership. Like you didn't have free choice and none of that shit. So
Mm-hmm.
we shouldn't have negative connotations to words like ownership. You feel me? So another thing that struck me with the interview, Shannon asked him, "Look, man, you've been divorced twice. Your second wife cleans you out. Like it was $1,700 in excess of over 30 mil prior to the divorce."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, most people go through that type of trauma, be like, look, I'm done with love. Fuck that. That ain't for me. I'm going back to the streets. I'm gonna stay in them streets. And I'm gonna be comfortable with that. I'm gonna keep my and he even said it. He was like, look, I'm gonna have my rotation. He was like, look, he was serious. He put it up on his wall. Look, I'm gonna rotate them in and out. This is what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna live my best life. And he said God had another plan for me. And that's when he brought his current wife back into his life. They dated prior. And he took off. So I would just simply say, like, a lot of times, especially as men, we go through traumatic experiences. We joke about it.
Mm-hmm.
He'll get his heart broken elementary, middle school, high school, keep that with him for his whole life. He ain't never got over that. You know what I'm saying? So if a man get his heart broken real time and he lose money, time, and all these types of things, yo, that's very traumatic. Me and Juice had a birthday event for our past birthday, and we spoke to an elder that we looked to, and he had the whole talk about his divorces, what he lost, and you know what I'm saying, in one divorce, and how he married another woman, and she passed away prematurely, and he was like, "Look, but I'm open to love again." You know what I'm saying? And we both was just sitting there, just listening in awe, and he was the happiness and the optimism that he had towards it was like unmatched. Like we didn't even have that type of optimism, you know what I'm saying? And we ain't been through what he been through at all. You know what I mean? You know?
I would have said fuck life. The way that man said everything, losing houses, I was like, oh no, bro, I would have checked out.
Racks on racks lost, like all types of things lost. So I would just simply say, like, if you look at society and you look at like the levels of anxiety and you look at mass shootings, you look at capitalism, you look at all these different types of things, the main thing that people overlook is the lack of empathy and the lack of love and optimism towards actually restructuring and building families. So just shouts out to Steve for that type of mentality. And he said, look, my parents was married for over 60 years. So I seen the good, bad, and the ugly of marriage. And I think that's critical as well, because if you don't come from a two-parent household and you've never really seen it firsthand and seen everything that goes on, you really probably won't even understand the good, bad, and ugly of it. Because you're outside looking in, you're not really there seeing all the dirt, all the happiness, and all these different types of things. And he was even asked, like, look, you had 3 kids, she had 3 kids. How did the whole blended family thing work? He said, look, we still trying to make it work. He like, I ain't gonna give you no bullshit answer. He like, look, this shit was terrible. Like, you know what I'm saying? Some of the kids get along, some of the kids don't. Her family didn't approve of the marriage. Who cares? Like, me and her was happy, and we decided that we're gonna be happy. Who wants to be a part of it? Cool. Who don't want to be a part of it? Fine. So I would just simply say, like, as men, you know, we got to work on our traumatic experiences that we want to attach to love. And maybe that can progress us more so, especially as Black men, and actually building families. When we think of families, we think of child support, alimony, divorces. You know what I'm saying? We see the ending before we can see a beginning. You know what I mean? And Wall Street Sharpe said it. He was like, look, I want to see more Black men have weddings than funerals. You know what I'm saying? So we just have to keep in mind how far we take out negativity at the same time. So shouts out to the fellas that's pursuing their marriages, relationships, despite their shortcomings. You know, it all plays a part in how you become a progressive man. If you don't have the shortcomings 9 times out of 10, you're not going to learn how to get it right. So the story doesn't end at failure. Failure is just sometimes part of the story. So you got it.
Man, listen, shout out to all the brothers we get married. Send me an invitation. I might find my wife there. Who knows? Might find my wives there. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Hey, just send me an invitation.
Okay.
You know, make sure the food is paid for so I can eat. You know, I'll give you a gift. You know, candles or cologne. You know, that's my thing. But on a serious note, I love the optimism of. Okay, this is crazy. Men will look at women at times who still want love after everything they went through, how many kids they didn't have, and be like, you delusional.
Sure. Sure.
But as a man, when I hear a man that go through the same shit, I would be like, damn, maybe there is a chance. It's not as delusional looking at it from the opposite sense. It becomes realistic, like, damn, what if it's possible? Was it, man? What if there is love out there? You know what I'm saying? I get, like I said, the elder that talked to us during our birthday, he planted some very, very good seeds in my mind. I'll definitely pray that. In fact, you see some of them seeds sprout out in one of the episodes we had. I was like, nah, bro, you're not gonna tell me marriage is a bad thing. And I see the benefits from it on different standpoints, different hierarchies, different structures, on how everything is made. Like I said, it's still access points that people don't believe you can only have in a marriage versus being an individual person. If you're not married, you will never know about it. So it doesn't even matter. So I mean, as far as that, I do like Steve when he said, "Listen, I made a family of love." Like I said, both sides of the family didn't want them to get married. More interested enough, both. It's kind of chaotic, but it worked out at the end. I mean, both individuals did leave their own relationship just to make this relationship happen. But I still, but I also look at it like, I don't know if they was married at the time. The man wants to say, like, listen, anybody's up for grabs until they get married.
Oh no, they was both.
They was both married still.
They was both divorced.
Both divorced. Okay, that's what I'm saying. But they was still. But yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all I got right there before my went blank for a second.
All right, man. Enough of that love shit. So he said some key shit that caught me is he went backwards and he was like, look, he didn't start comedy until he was about 27. Boom. He didn't really blow up until he was like 37, 38.
38 when he finally hit TV.
Look, timing. Some people feel like if they don't make it by 20, 25, they ain't shit. Some people feel like if you don't make it by 30, you ain't shit. You're a failure. You ain't nothing. Look, timing is not necessarily what you see it as. Sometimes timing doesn't necessarily work when you think it should work. So he was like, look, if I would have had this success earlier, I would have ran through more money. I would have ran through more women. I would have been a little bit more chaotic with it because I didn't have the knowledge, the wisdom, the discipline. I hadn't went through enough just yet. So he told many stories of him being homeless, him being ready to quit while being homeless. And as soon as he was ready to throw in the towel, he got a phone call. Show sign at the Apollo. Look, come audition. Sunday. It's like Wednesday or Thursday. He don't even have enough money to get to New York. So he crying again and breaking down. Still ready to quit. Somebody hit him up. Look, boom, got an opportunity for you. We'll pay you $150. Bet. Take the opportunity. Did so well. Boom. We'll pay you another $150. Come back. Boom. Now we got $300. Boom. Do it again. Spend $99 on the plane ticket. Boom. Still go to New York with 2 bags of clothes. That's the only thing he owned. Yeah. And there, he just leveled up. So you have to have tunnel vision sometimes. Some people emphasize faith. That's great. But you have to have a combination of faith and tunnel vision. And then you still have to work on your craft, because when he pulled up to these events, right, he was ready. He wrote, he was ready. He was locked in. He was more prepared than other people that was there. So preparation beats poor performance. You have to always remember that. So you have to have a perfect balance between faith, belief, work ethic, understanding timing. Things may not work when you think they should work, but they're working. That's just like even with the podcast. I hit you up earlier. Boom. Family member reached out to me. Yo, look, the podcast, it put us on a different trajectory. Something we was doing for years. We narrowed it down to a couple of minutes just based on something you said during the podcast. Bet. All right. So impact. Like, never devalue your impact based on metrics, views, likes, comments, shares, income. That shit is tangible, but sometimes it's the intangible things that count when you don't think they count. So I'm a big fan of Kobe, Jordan, all these people. Work ethic and practice and preparation that's really where it's at. That's the discipline. That's the grit. That's gonna prepare you for when shit really hit the fan. Just imagine you made $1 million tomorrow, but you wasn't ready for it. Your shit popped, but you didn't have business plans. You didn't have financial advisors. You didn't have the right circle and network around you. You hadn't been through enough things. 9 times out of 10, you're going to fuck it off and end up back at square one. And hopefully you got enough grit in you to work for it again, to make sure you don't lose it again. So I just want to put that in the mix. Like, timing is very critical and key. Sometimes it's really just about preparation and impact. So you got it.
Man, one of the best things I always tell people is you got to continuously work on you. You got to network. You got to keep showing up for stuff that you don't know people are going to show up for. That's one of the most uncomfortable things, is not knowing who's going to show up into certain places, events. It's the daily disciplines that get you there. One thing I was going to comment about what you're saying is people don't realize the discipline that Steve Harvey actually has. Like, nobody talks about that. And he's also a market. Like I said, so a lot of things I'm starting to see and realize he's really just a marketing genius, because there's always a different plan that he always does underneath the surface that y'all don't see, right? Because he said he first started out writing jokes for people, and then that's what helped get him out there. Like, man, he's the funniest dude here. Is he using your jokes? He's like doing his and that mixture. I remember, what's his name? Byron Allen. Black billionaire. He said he was writing out jokes for JJ Reddick. He used to write jokes for him. He did different things that get him in the door. I always say stay focused at what you are and where you are and how to get there, right? It's times I literally was sitting in this room, my man, and I just like writing. I'm like, all right, what does my network really look like? People really don't know what their network look like. I know exactly how I want to shape my multitude of counselors. One of my mentors just happened to be a pharmacist. I have somebody in health. I have like 2 people who's in physical education. I said physical education. Like I said, that's fitness instructors. I have different things in my multitude of counsel. I need to make sure that's all around balance for me. But at the same time, if you don't know what you're really aiming for, then you'll never be able to hit anything. There's a group right now, they have a young professionals group. And I'm like, hey, listen, anybody in logistics or tech industry, two industries I'm very much familiar with. I'm in there, I'm talking to anybody who's talking about tech and logistics. People's like, hey, does anybody know any school? Hey, listen, there's a school right now online I just looked up. Hey, does anybody know any chat GDP? Hey, this is how you do it. Like, I'm making sure in this group, I'm gonna stick the fuck out. So when I ask people like, hey, can we collaborate? Can we do lunch? And these are professionals. They got what are they? CNAs. They got MBAs. They got some of them are life coaches. Some of them have their own podcast. Some have their radio station. These are really professional people. I'm gonna make sure I stand out just so I can start improving my network. All right, everybody's not gonna take the fucking meal you give them. They want to know like, are you worth my time? What value are you gonna bring?
Mhm.
That's one of the main things. You gotta bring value to people to make them want them to talk to you, or sometimes you just gotta show up where they're at and make sure you talk directly to them. Like, there's a couple different events I'll be attending this year and this month along. I don't know nobody there, but I guarantee I'm gonna talk to everybody. They gonna know me before I leave. They're like, yeah, man, I just seen you at that table. Hey, you was just over there. I don't care. I care nothing for rejection. I care nothing for it.
Man, I just gotta repeat this. Man, that man said sometimes um, God keeps special people in the furnace just a little while longer until they're ready. And it just goes back to sometimes you got to be hungry in order to reach a certain type of level of success. Sometimes if you want to get that type of body that you want, you have to go into a caloric deficit. Like sometimes going into a deficit is what makes you greater. So even people that come from comfort, lavish things or whatever, they implement these same types of strategies as well. They find a way to put themselves into a situation to where it's fight or flight, and then they excel. That's when they reach that like Christ consciousness level, so to speak, is when the chips are down, when they're back against the wall. So I just want to throw that in the mix as well. Sometimes it's a beauty in not having things in abundance while you're on the come up. So I had to say that as well. And then he spoke about how he had, and then he lost, and then he gained it back, and then he lost it again. It goes back to being hungry. Like even if you look at uh, some people take the caloric deficit thing to even like historically speaking to where food wasn't in abundance. No Uber Eats, no grocery store. People had to hunt for food. So they didn't eat before they hunted. They hunted on an empty stomach. This gave them an extra primitive focus. They was actually on a mission. It gave them extra strength, all these different types of things. So people implement that as well. You hear a lot of black men, Malcolm X, all these different type of men. They say, look, they found consciousness while in prison. They didn't have vices, no drugs, no women, no anything, and then they found their way through being deprived. So that goes back to the saying: too many good times make a man weak. So you always have to remember that. I would say one thing on his arrogance level. Um, this man, I really haven't seen no arrogance. He said, look, when we did Kings of Comedy, Bernie kicked my ass. Bernie was so good, I didn't want to go behind him. Even when he put other people on and gave them opportunities, he was like, look, at the time, you can consider them competitors, competition, even though he was competitive. But he said at the same time, look, I'm going to be me regardless. Can't nobody stop my shine. Can't nobody stop my light. If you got a small light, it don't matter how many people you trip, clip, fuck over, you're still not going to make it because a small light is just a small light regardless. He was like, look, so I ain't got to fuck over people to become great and be the best version of myself. He's like, look, I know what God got for me. I know who I am. I know what I can do. So he put people on instead of cut people off. So just him saying he was willing to work with other great people, and that really don't happen too many times. Sometimes if people come up together, they can't say this person was better than me. That hurts them. They can't even work with people that they know that's better than they are or something. Nonetheless, they can't eat together. So they feel as though they have to take and take and take to make sure somebody else don't have more. He was like, look, I don't give a fuck if somebody got a bigger house than me. This house I work for, I came from nothing. This is my life. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier, trying to live like the Joneses. Like, you have to know your lane. There's no traffic in your lane. That's what you're meant to do. That's what you're good at. That's what you're great at. You have to know your purpose, know your passion, know your gifts, know your weaknesses. Comparison is the most devaluing thing you can do on any level, right? So shouts out to him on that. We don't see, especially too many black people, and Shannon pointed that out as well. It's not too many black people that can come from nothing, get something, and then still have that spirit of putting other people on. Cedric the Entertainer, he was like, look, he was a nobody at this time period. But when it came down to the TV show, he was like, look, give me that guy, or I'm not doing the show. He put himself on the chopping block on the strength of bringing somebody else into success. So I would just say, as a people, we need more of that type of mentality and thinking. So when people just see Steve Harvey on TV and they say, oh, he cooning and he ain't for the culture, this is how you are for the culture. You don't have to be out front, loud, black power, black this, black that, all black everything. You know, like, you don't have to do that in order to be for the culture. It's actually what you do for the culture behind closed doors as well that pushes us forward. So I'll let you go. Anything else you got on?
Oh man, nah, I was going to say, man, nah, that's true. I just talked to you earlier about like, yo, it's kind of crazy that when it comes to either the content creating or just even in general, you
Hmm?
have men that don't want to work with each other.
Hmm?
You have men that don't want to work with each other a lot because they don't know what can happen, the competitiveness and all that. I don't care if somebody's better than me.
Hmm?
I was going to talk to somebody yesterday. I said, listen, true dominance is knowing you're not going to be dominant in every area. You put other people in there to dominate that situation so it's easier for y'all to walk through.
Hmm?
If there's a situation about mathematics and I'm not a math guy, I'm gonna put my math guy in that situation. Like, hey, listen, handle that for me. All right, this is why people become so powerful because they have all around people and part of their circle. Hey, uh, what do we do marketing wise? Like, they got a marketing, they got a marketing director right there, marketing advertiser right there. You put people to advance you to get your skill levels or your image out there for those purposes. You got to know when to step back and just when to put people on the line. Like, it's times I be wanting to feel like I need to step in every situation. I'm like, man, listen, if nothing can get duplicated, I'm gonna get fucking drained. So you're gonna have to throw people on the fire at the same time. It's gonna burn, hey, but so be it. A lot of situations I've been in. Listen, this year alone, this test I didn't fail. Next time I took it, I passed. You just gotta accept it. Like, listen, some things you're gonna fail at. Some information you're gonna need to learn from other individuals. That's why I'm really big on, like I always say, mentorship. People who are specialists in fields. I like being around people like that, man. I got to build myself an all-around person. That's why I say I'm a generalist, not a specialist. I can tell you a little about a lot, but never a lot about a little, because I just want to learn as much as I can.
Oh, my clothes would be taking it somewhere else. You look at Apple. Apple been around since the '70s, but they didn't pop until like really just pop until like maybe 2010, maybe a little bit prior. Yo, that's a lot of grit. That's a lot of practice. That's a lot of work. And then you have to look at one of the biggest investors within that company, Bill Gates, Microsoft. You feel me? Like, this quote unquote is a competitor, but if you really look at it, Apple, uh, Microsoft, uh, they actually work together in different types of ways. They kind of eat together within the same capacity. So Bill Gates invested into Apple, and in exchange, he wanted shares within the company because he saw the potential. So let's just imagine if it was just dog eat dog competitor and all that shit, we probably wouldn't have Apple. And if we didn't have Apple, Bill Gates probably wouldn't have some of the fortune that he attained throughout his career as well. So sometimes it's really just knowing that sometimes coexisting and sharing the same space is critical as well. Because sometimes wiping out competition can mean you taking food off your plate at the same time. So some people feel like, look, I can wipe out the competition, and some people feel like, look, I can invest into the competition and still make myself better at the same time. So you really have to be careful about what type of competitor you are at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just word to the wise. We've seen in sports. Look, Matt Barnes went at Kobe. He's like, look, anybody crazy enough to go at me, I want you on the squad. Ron Artest, Meta World Peace went at Kobe. Bet. Put him on the squad. He won with both of those guys, even though they was rivals at one point. Michael Jordan and Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman was on the Detroit Pistons. Main rival to Jordan. What did he do later on? Put him on the squad. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes we get lost in competition and we still don't see how we can win at the same time. So I just want to put that in the mix as well. The greatest company that America has ever seen, arguably, not really arguably, but you know what I mean? It came at sometimes at the focal point of the opposition at the same time, seeing the potential as well and seeing how he could have benefited at the same time. So that's how I throw that in the mix. And shouts out to Steve Harvey for thinking like this as well. People that he saw as competitors, he's still seeing a necessity to put them on at the same time. They all coexist. They get money together. Sometimes having a war mentality could fuck people, right? Because sometimes war never ends. But coexisting, making peace, seeing how people could fight for the same cause, sometimes you can extend your longevity or your reign as a king or whatever you want to call yourself. So that's all I got, man.
That's all I got, man.
All right. We wrap that up. Talking and Talk official podcast up top. Got No Ordinary Brother. I go by the name of King Exodus. Make sure you tap into that YouTube link in both of our bios. And thank you for watching.
All right, y'all. Till next time. Peace.
All right.